How you doing there? Well, welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chaf Aleph, Daf 21 of Masechta BavaKama. Friends. Today we kind of wrap up the sugya of Zenen V'Zeh Chaser, and then we kind of wrap up the current Mishnah as well, and then we start a new Mishnah. How does that sound? Let's go weiter. So we're going to start all the way at the top of Daf Chaf Aleph, Amud Aleph. Shalach le Reb Abba bar Zavda lemari bar Mar. So Reb Abba bar Zavda sends to Mari bar Mar. Boi mine me Rav Huna, I asked. Dude, I just spaced out. Let's start over. Shalach le Reb Abba bar Zavda lemari bar Mar. So Reb Abba bar Zavda sends to Mari bar Mar. Boi mine me Rav Huna, I asked Rav Huna. Hadar b'chatzor chaver shelo midaito tzarich lalos lo sachar or lo. No, zenen v'zeh chaser, right? If Reuven is living in Shimon's courtyard without Shimon's knowledge, does he need to pay Shimon? Adachi noch nafshet Rav Huna, and sure enough, Rav Huna died, and he didn't yet answer his question. Amalei Rabba bar Rav Huna, hachi amar Rabba. So Rav Huna's son Rabba bar Rav Huna says, well, this is what my father said. This is what my father said in the name of Rab. Eino tzarich lalos lo sacher. Reuven would not need to pay Shimon. Vasocher bayis me Reuven my sacher le Shimon. And if a fellow is renting a house from Reuven, so he pays Shimon. Shimon ma'avidte. Who's Shimon? If somebody's renting a house from Reuven, why would he be paying Shimon? So Achi Kamar, this is what it's saying. Nimtza bayis shel Shimon. If it turns out that it's not actually Reuven's house, it's Shimon's house. So Ma'ale lo sacher, so he pays Shimon. So Tarte. So the Gemara says, wait, I don't understand. We just said a second ago that Zenen V'Zeh Chaser, that if Reuven is living in Shimon's space without his knowledge, so he does not need to pay him, right? If it's a situation of Zenen V'Zeh Chaser, but then we say that if a fellow rents space from Reuven, turns out it's actually Shimon's, he has to pay Shimon. Why? I thought it's Shalom Midaito. Why should he have to pay? So the Kaima La'agra, the Lo Kaima La'agra. Well, it depends. Depends what Shimon's plans were. If Shimon's plans were to Airbnb the space, so you have to pay him. If Shimon's plans were not to Airbnb the space, then you do not have to pay him. Itmar Nami was also stated Amr B'chia by Oven Amr Rav. Ve'amri la Amr B'chia bar Oven Amr Rav Huna. Hadar b'chatzor chavero shelo midaito. If a fellow lives in his Reuven lives in Shimon's chatzor without Shimon's knowledge, and utzarich lalos lo sacher, he doesn't need to pay Shimon anything. Vasocher bayis mipnei ha'ir maile sacher levailim. And a fellow who is renting a house from, the people of the city, he doesn't need to pay the owners. What's the deal with the owners? He's not renting it from the owners, he's renting from the people of the city. No, if it turns out that it doesn't belong to the people of the city, there is somebody else who owns the house, so you pay that person. I don't understand. Those are two conflicting things. On the one end, you're saying he doesn't have to pay the person. On the other end, we're saying he does have to pay the person. On the Kaimel Agra, so it depends if the space was for rent or not. If the place was for rent, so then he has to pay him. If the place wasn't for rent, then he doesn't have to pay him. Baradam. Amr V'Schora, Amr Rav Huna, Amr Rav. Says Rav Schora in the name of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav. Hadar b'chatzor chavero Shalom Midaito, that if Reuven lives in Shimon's space without his knowledge, Ein tzarich lalos lo sacher, he doesn't need to pay Shimon. Mishum shenemar ushia yukas shor, that a place that is abandoned, that is desolate, that is natush. So these demons come in. It's not good. So Amar Bar Avashi says, Bar Avashi Lididi Chazili. Bar Avashi says that he saw this demon Umangach Kitor, and it gores like an ox. It's not a good situation. So meaning, an abandoned house, an empty house is no good. The demons start coming, and that's no good. So therefore, it's beneficial to Shimon that somebody should be living in his house, so that there shouldn't be any demons over there. It shouldn't be empty. Rav Yosef, I'm a sister of Yosef, Beisa Miasva Yosef, that it's good to have a house that people live in, right? If you have a house that's just empty all the time, things fall apart, nobody notices. A person who's living in a house, you notice there's a leak over here, this appliance broke, whatever it is, and the ants are coming in somewhere, whatever it might be. Somebody lives in a house, so the house gets taken care of, and it doesn't kind of fall to disrepair. So those are two reasons why it's beneficial that somebody should be living in Shimon's space, either to prevent the demons or to make sure that things are getting taken care of. My benai, what's the nafkamina between these two approaches? Well, if the balabais, the owner of the house, uses the space to store like wood and stuff, as like a shed. So if he's using it to store wood and stuff, so there won't be any demons there or anything like that. But at the same time, nobody's really living there to make sure that things are taken care of properly. It's like maybe it's not exactly like it, but when in a different phase in my life a few years ago, so I was staying at a lot of Airbnbs. You could tell which Airbnbs are like a rental property and which Airbnbs the person actually lived in and is like on vacation or something like that. The places that people get just for like a rental, they're like missing certain touches that it's clear that okay, nobody actually ever lived here, somebody's living in a house, so they kind of by living in a house you kind of figure out the details and things that you might not think of otherwise or notice otherwise. Let's go weiter. A fellow built a palace on a garbage dump of orphans. That's an interesting scenario. Agbir of Nachman lapad nemine, and Rav Nachman took away his mansion from him. So let's say that it's because Rav Nachman holds that you can't just get benefit even if it's senen of v'zelo chaser. You have to pay. And that's why Rav Nachman took away his mansion. So no, that's not why. The reason why Rav Nachman took away the mansion was because initially these Karmanayan people were living there, and and they paid epis to the Yisomim. And Rav Nachman said to this fellow who built the mansion, he says, look, work something out with the orphans, but he didn't listen. So that's why Rav Nachman took away his mansion, because the guy was being shtickle nudnik. So moving on, so the Mishnah had said that so then oh gosh, I'm gonna rub my nose 1 second. Mom, don't look. Okay. Alright, pretend like that didn't happen. Okay. So we had said in the Mishnah that Shane in Rishus Harabim, if the animal eats Rishus Harabim, so he's potter, the owner is potter in Rishus Harabim, but he pays for mashenenis. He pays for kind of the benefit that he got. If it's tzidei Rishus Harabim, so then it is mashehizik. Right? Right? Was that the lotion? Right? From the side of the, I think the side of the Rishus Harabim. So then the owner pays for the damage. So in Rishus Harabim, so it's mashenenis, but on the side, then it's mashehizika, the actual damage. So Rav says, what are we talking about? The sides. If the animal is standing in the Rishus Harabim, and it extends its neck to the side of Rishus Harabim and eats epis, so Rav says in that case would be mashehizik. Ushmuel Amar afilim nechazeres nami potter. Where Shmuel says no, if the animal is standing in Rishus Harabim, where the animal is potter, doesn't pay for nizakin there, and the animal extends its head to the side, it makes no difference. It's still standing in Rishus Harabim, therefore it's still going to be potter. He's not going to pay nizakin; he'll pay for net mashenenis. Well, then according to Shmuel, what would be the situation where the owner would be chayiv for nizakin. Shmuel says it's not when the animal extends its head. Well, if the animal mamish goes and walks and goes to the side and is standing in the side and eats epis from there, so then you'd be chayiv for nizakin. But not if he just extends the neck. And those who teach this not as necessarily referring to our Mishnah, but as a standalone statement, as a standalone machlokas. Mechazeres, that if you have an animal that's standing in Rosh Hashanah and extends its neck to the side of Rosh Hashanah and eats epis, Rav Mechayeves, Rav says it's going to be chayeves to pay, the owner is chayev to pay for the damages. Shmuel Amar Petura, where Shmuel says Pitur. L'Shmuel Mishalemes Mashe Izika Echi Mishkachas Lo D'Mechayev. Now, according to Shmuel, it says that when the animal extends its head and eats from the side, the owner is potter. So then, where would the owner be chayev? So Kigon Deshavka L'Rechava VeOzla VeKama B'Tzidei Rechava. Well, if the animal goes to mamish the side and stands in the side and eats in the side, that's where the owner will be chayev Mashe Izik. Moshe of Nachum by Yitzchok. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, however, asked a kasha on Rav. He asked a kasha on Rav. What's the kasha that he asked on Rav? Mi Pesach achonus mishalemes mashenenis. That the Mishnah said, the next statement in the Mishnah was, that if an animal eats from the entryway of a store, mishalemes mashenenis. So the owner is going to pay the benefit, not the nizakin. Now, how does this happen that an animal eats from the entrance to the store? Pshita b'mechazeres. Well, it turns its neck, it extends its neck and eats from the store. Friends, have you ever been to a store before? You ever been on a street before? You ever been on a street before that has a store before? You ever been on a street with a store? How does it work, a street with a store? Well, you walk down kind of Main Street, and on either side there are stores. So if you can imagine yourself as an ox, so you're walking down, you're kind of oxing yourself down the road, and you see that there's a hummus joint. No, who eats hummus? There's a pizza shop. You see that there's a pizza shop right to your left, and there's a pie of pizza there on the entrance to the store. So you just extend your neck and eat it. So the point being that in order for the animal to eat the pizza at the entrance to the store, clearly he's going to be extending its neck to the side to eat that pizza pie. And we're saying that would be considered mashenenis, not mashehizik. But according to Rav, he says that b'mchazeres, that when the animal extends the neck, it's mashehizik. So v'kama mashenenis, right? We're saying that the owner pays for the benefit, not for the damages. Mashenenis and mashehizik lo, not for the damages. Who most of the mefarik lo, but Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak answers his own kasha. When would it be mashenenis? The kaima b'keren zavis, if it's in the corner. Oh gosh, this chevra, I don't know how to explain this. If you're looking inside, if you're reading with us inside, Rashi actually has a diagram in Rashi which is actually helpful. It's like I'm not going to explain it well. I don't. Even if I explained it extremely well, I'm not exactly sure that you would understand it. It's the kind of thing you just have to look at it and you're like, oh, okay. What is it? A picture is worth 1,000 words. That applies here. Anyways, even just the picture in Rashi would help. Basically, you have a smaller passageway that opens up into a bigger passageway, and in the corner there, at the end of the small passageway that opens up into the bigger passageway, there's a store. And the store kind of extends into the smaller passageway. The point being that an animal that's walking over there would be able to eat the pizza pie without having to turn its head, because the store kind of like, is on the way based on however it's dark, the way that it's set up. Basically, the point is that in the situation of mashenenes, it would be where the animal was able to consume the pizza without having to turn its head. Exciting stuff. Igadam, to those who say, Michazeres kuli alma lo plige de chayeves. So there are those who say that actually Rav and Shmuel both agree that when it comes to the animal turning its head to the side, chayiv, right? So if the animal is standing in Rishus Harabim, and on the side of Rishus Harabim there's some food there, and the animal extends its neck and eats the food, so chayiv. Right? So again, ikadamim chazeres kulam lo plige de chayeves. Ki plige, where the machlokas is b'mekatze makom merishuso lerishus harabim. So the machlokas between Rav and Shmuel is, you have a guy, and the guy's got his property right next to Rishus Harabim. Now, the thing is, he doesn't build his house right up to Rishus Harabim. His house is a bit further back on the property. So he's got some, there's like right on the side of Rishus Harabim, there's this property that he has that there's nothing there because his house is a little bit further back, so it's just kind of property. And he's got some fruits, he's got some food there, at the edge of his property by Rishus Harabim. So that's what we're talking about, right? So kiplige b'mekatze makom merishuso the Rishus Harabim, that he's got. What does Rashi say? B'mekatze makom, about 10-15 lines before it gets wide. Shekonas l'soch shelo uvana. Exactly. V'eniach mikarko the Rishus Harabim. V'shatach sham peris. Yeah, I think the point is that the property is like right next to Rishus Harabim, and he put his fruits there, like right next to Rishus Harabim, and then this animal is walking down the street and kind of eats those fruits. Okay. And this is how it is stated. Rav says, Rav lo shanu ela michazeres, that it's the owner is only going to be chayiv nezek shalem. But the owner is only going to be chayiv for nizakin as opposed to mashenenis. When it comes to michazeres, if the animal has to turn its head to eat from the side of the Rishus Harabim, avom mikatze makom merishusa Rishus Harabim petura. But in this scenario, where Shimon has a house and his property is right next to Rishus Harabim, and he puts fruits there on his property right next to Rishus Harabim, Ruvain would be. Right, Ruvain, whose ox ate it, would be potter to pay. Ushmuel Amar, right, well, he would only be paying mashenenis. Ushmuel Amar says, Shmuel, afilu mikatze makom merishusa Rishus Harabim chayeves, where Shmuel says, even in this scenario, where his fruits are right next to Rishus Harabim, Ruvain would have to pay mashehizik. Lema bebor b'rishuso kamiflgei. And let's say that the machlokas here between Rav and Shmuel is like the machlokas by bor b'rishuso. If you have a fellow and he's got his own property, and on his own property he digs a pit, so he can do whatever he wants on his property. But then he's mafkir his property. He no longer owns his property, but he keeps possession of the pit. He still owns the pit, but not the property. And then Ruvain's ox falls into the pit. So the shaila is Shimon, whose pit it is he chayiv for that or not? So again, lema bibor b'shuso kamiflagei. Let's say that the machlokas here between Rav and Shmuel is like the machlokas when you have a fellow who has a pit inside of his own property, then he's mafkir his property, but he still owns the pit. So Rav de Omar Potter. So Rav who says that over here by the fruits, Ruvain does not have to pay for damages. He holds Kasaver Bar B'Shuso Chayiv. He holds that Shimon would be chayiv for being mafkir his property and but still owning the pit, and therefore because Shimon is not allowed to do that, if Ruvain gets damaged by it, so then Shimon is going to be chayiv to pay Ruvain for the damages. And in this case as well, when Shimon has his fruits there, if Ruvain's ox eats it, Ruvain is off the hook. Because Shimon's doing something not right. Shimon's doing something inappropriate. He's got this pit there. He was mafkir the property. If Ruvain's animal falls into it, Shimon's going to be chayiv. If Ruvain's animal eats his fruits that are there, Ruvain's going to be potter. The burden is on Shimon, who has this pit. Ushmuel the Amar chayiv, whereas Shmuel, who says that Ruvain is going to have to pay for the fruits that his animal eats, kasaver bar b'shuso potter. he holds that this scenario where Shimon digs this pit in his property, and Reuven's animal gets hurt, so Shimon is potter. It's within his rights to have this pit there. And it's also within his rights to have his fruits there. And therefore, if Reuven's animal eats those fruits, Reuven's going to have to pay him back. So Omar Lach Rav. So now Rav's going to say Olam Eimalach. So we wanted to say Rav, who says that he's potter when if the animal eats these fruits at the side. We want to say it's because Shimon would be in trouble. He would be chayiv for making this pit. So it says Rav, not necessarily Olam Eimalach Ba'am Bar B'Shuso potter. I can even make the argument, says Rav, that if Shimon has this pit and he's mafkir his property, Shimon would be potter. It's within his rights to do it. It's potter. He's potter. But still, Reuven, if his animal eats Shimon's fruits there, Reuven would not have to pay Shimon, because V'shani Yochad, it's different over here to Omar Lei, that Reuven's going to say to Shimon, Lav kol kamina d'min kareves lehu lefeiro secho l'rishus harabim chayeves l'toroi. Look, Reuven says to Shimon, look, I'm not paying you. It's not right that you have your fruits right here at the side of Rishus Harabim, and my ox is now going to eat it, and I'm going to have to pay you for it. Come on. But that's not using good judgment. So says Reuven, look, I'm not paying you for your fruits that you mamish put right in the, right next to Rishus Harabim in a place that, it's likely to get eaten. So therefore, that is why Reuven is potter from paying Shimon. Ushmuel, Omar and Shmuel said, Shmuel says that Reuven is going to be chayiv to pay for the fruits. So we said earlier that Shmuel would hold that Shimon is potter for making this pit. It's within his rights, and therefore, if Reuven's animal eats the fruits, then Reuven's going to have to pay him back. But says Shmuel that I can say that even Shimon would be chayiv if he makes that pit, right? So Shmuel Amar Ba'ama Bor B'Shuso Chayiv. I can even say that Shimon would be chayiv for making this pit. To Bishlama Bor, because I understand why Shimon would be chayiv for making the pit, because Ika Lememar Lavadatai, because Reuven would say, look, my animal didn't realize that there was a pit there. Right? It didn't think that there would just be a pit there. But Elaperis, but in terms of the fruits, but Reuven can't make that same argument with the fruits that my ox didn't see them. Of course, the ox saw them. That's why he ate them. So therefore, Reuven's going to have to. Reuven's still going to have to pay for those fruits, according to Shmuel. Well, I got a little bit technical there. Okay, Lema Mechazeres Tanoihi. So let's say that this whole concept of Mechazeres, of if the animal extends its neck to the sides of Rishus Harabim and eats the fruits, let's say that's Taka Machlokas Tanoim. The Tanya is willing to buy so Achlo Mitoch HaRechava, that if the animal eats from the Rishus Harabim, Mishalemis Mashanenis, so the owner pays. Right, let's say Reuven pays that which the animal benefited. Mitzidei arechava, but if the animal eats from the sides of the road of the Rishus Harabim, Mishalemis Mashezika, Reuven pays that which it damaged, not just that which it benefited. Div Rav Meir Rav Yehuda, that's the opinion of Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda. Now, Rabbi Yosef Rav Elazar Omer says Rabbi Yosef Rav Elazar in darka lechol elo lehalech. It is not the way of the animal to eat, rather to walk. Okay. Rabbi Yossi and Tanakama. So we say, isn't Rabbi Yossi saying the same thing as Tanakama? Because the assumption is that Rabbi Yossi is talking about in the sides of Rishus Harabim. So basically, both Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Meir are saying that if the animal eats in the sides of Rishus Harabim, so then Reuven, the owner, is going to be chayiv. So Ella Machzeres Ika Benayu, the nafkamina is Mechazeres, that if the animal is standing in Rishus Harabim but extends its neck to the side, Reb Meir would say potter, right? Only pay masha nenes, because since it's standing in Rishus Harabim, potter. Whereas Reb Yossi would say, that was Reb Meir. Reb Yossi would say that since it's strange, right? Since it wouldn't normally extend its neck to the sides, therefore you'd be chayiv for nizakin. Okay. Fine. So Tanakama Sof Mechazeres Nami Mishalemis Mashenenis, that Rav Meir says that when it extends the neck to the sides of Rishus Harabim, Reuven the owner would only pay that which it benefited. For Rabbi Yossi Savar, whereas Rabbi Yossi says Mishalemis Mashe Zika, that Reuven would pay for the damages. Lo, no. D'chuli Am Mechazeres Ikrav Ikishmul, no. Both Rav Meir and Rabbi Yossi hold that when it comes to Mechazeres, when the animal extends its neck to the side, they both agree. Agree on what? I don't know, either like Rav, who says Potter Chayev for Nizakin, or like Shmuel who says Potter. Did I get that right? Yeah. But either way, they both would hold the same there. But over here, the difference between them is how to understand the pasuk of Bir B'stei Acher. That Ma'asav Bir B'stei Acher v'lo b'Rishus Harabim. That Reb Meir holds that when the pasuk says Bir B'stei Acher, that when it comes to Shein, it has to be in somebody else's domain, not in Rishus Harabim. So therefore, the Reuven is potter if the animal eats in Rishus Harabim. U'Ma'asavar, whereas Reb Yossi holds Bir B'stei Acher v'lo b'Rishus Hamazik. What the exclusion in Bir B'stei Acher is that the animal eats it in a different domain, but not the domain of the mazik. Meaning, if Reuven puts his fruits in Shimon's courtyard, and then Shimon's animal eats them, so then Shimon is not going to be chayiv when his animal eats the fruits that Reuven left in his courtyard without permission. But B'Rishus Harabim, Reuven's ox would be chayiv for shein. I just switched around who's Reuven and who's Shimon, but the point being is that we're arguing that according to Rabbi Yossi there would be shein in Rishus Harabim, and that's the difference between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Meir says that there's no shein in Rishus Harabim. Rabbi Yossi, that's what Rabbi Meir says. Rabbi Yossi says that there is shein in Rishus Harabim. B'Rishus Hamazik lema percha b'Rishusi my boy, but I don't need a pasuk to teach me that if somebody puts his fruits in somebody else's courtyard and that person and the owner of the courtyard's animal eats the fruits, obviously the owner is potter. I don't need a pasuk to teach me that. The owner simply just says, like, why did you put your fruit in my place? So rather, that is not the machlokas about how to learn the psukim. Ella, the ilfa of Reb Oshaya, Ike Benayu, the nafkamina is regarding ilfa and Reb Oshaya. We learned that yesterday, right? Ilfa was if a animal extends its neck and eats from stuff that's on a different animal, that was ilfa. Reb Oshaya was talking about if an animal kind of like stands up and then like jumps up and eats stuff from like a basket that was on somebody's back. So in both of those cases, Reb Meir would say potter because it's in Rishus Harabim. Reb Yossi would say that in those cases, Reuven, the owner of the ox, would taka be chayiv. That's the difference. New Mishnah. Hakelev ve'agdi. If you have a hund, a dog, ve'agdi, or a goat, shekaftu mirosh hagag, that they jumped off of the roof. Very smart idea. V'shibus hakelim, they landed on vessels and broke them. Mishalim nezek shalim mipnei shu mu'adin shein mu'adin. So the owner of the hund or the goat is going to have to pay nezek shalim because it's regel betzim, assuming that it's in rishus yachid. Right, so it's regel, right? You should have assumed that the dog or the goat was going to jump off the roof. All right. Fine, so therefore he pays nezek shalom. Hakelev shanato charare. Oh, a dog who took a biscuit, v'alach l'gadosh, and walks over to a pile. Achal acharare, he eats the biscuit, vidlik hagadosh, and then lit the pile on fire. Halacharare mishalim nezek shalim. For the biscuit, the owner of the dog pays full damages. V'alagadosh mishalim chatzi nezek. But for the pile, the owner pays chatzi nezek, and we're going to, is my shoes untied? Wow, my shoes are untied. Very interesting. What should I do? Should I tie them or should I wait till we're done? Tie them or wait till I'm done? I'm going to try to wait till I'm done. Let's see how that goes. So the hund ate the biscuit, and then the coal from the biscuit. Whatever. I don't want to give away the. Oh gosh, this is going to drive me crazy. My untied shoe. So, anyways, so for the fire, it's chatzi nezek. The Gemara is going to explain exactly what's the deal hunt and the fire and all that stuff. All right. Taima de kafzu anaflu potter. Says the Gemara that the Mishnah had said that if you have a hunt or a goat on a roof and it jumps off the roof onto stuff and the stuff breaks, so the owner is chayiv, the owner of the hunt or the goat is chayiv, because it was just regal, right? It jumped off the roof and broke stuff. But hanaflu, but if the hunt or the goat didn't jump off the roof, it fell off the roof, well then potter. It's potter because that's just ones, right? The hunt, the goat fell off the roof. What do you want me to tell you? So Amos, so from here we see that a fellow, right, is a scenario where a fellow starts off as being posheya, negligent, but it ends up being an ones, he's potter. Meaning, for example, in our case, right, he left the hunt or the goat on the roof. That's irresponsible. It's negligent. Because he should have assumed that the goat or the hunt can jump off the roof. So therefore it's negligent. But interestingly, what ended up happening was that it didn't end up jumping off the roof. Something totally unexpected happened. It fell off the roof. So he had no reason to assume that it was going to fall off the roof. But nonetheless, we're saying he's potter. So we're saying that in a situation where it started off as being irresponsible, but in the end, some damages happened, but it wasn't the irresponsible damage, some unexpected damage happened. So we're saying he's potter, because ultimately, what happened was unexpected. We also learn in a price like this, that if you have a hunt or a goat that jumps off of a roof, they break vessels, so the owner has to pay nezek shalim because it's regal. Naflu peturin, but if they, randomly fell off the roof, then peturin. So this makes sense if you're of the school that holds that something that starts off irresponsible, but in the end something unexpected happened, potter, because in the end it was something completely unexpected that happened, potter, so beseder. But if you're of the school who holds that when something starts off negligent, so it starts off on the wrong foot, and then something totally unexpected happens, you're still going to be chayiv. Right? Meaning, something unexpected happened, but it started off in a negligent, irresponsible manner. So even though the result was not due to your irresponsibility per se, you're still going to be chayiv if something happens. So if that's the case, then how do you explain our Mishnah where we're saying dafka if the hunt or the goat jumps, you're chayiv, but if it falls, potter? So kigon de mekarve kelim legabe kosel, where it's talking about a situation where the vessels were right next to the wall. That the vessels were right next to the wall of the house, which means that if the hunt or the goat would have jumped off the roof, it wouldn't have broken anything. So therefore, leaving the hunt or the goat on the roof was not irresponsible, because even if it jumped off, which is what we have to be concerned it might do, it wouldn't land on any of the vessels. So therefore, it was not irresponsible. And then the hunt or the goat fell off the roof, which was unexpected, and landed on the vessels which were right next to the wall, then that's okay, because there was no negligence there, because again, the concern was that there was no concern that these animals would fall off the roof. That's unexpected. The concern was that they might jump off the roof. But all the vessels were right next to the wall, and they would have overshot the vessels if they jumped off the roof. Then when something unexpected happens, if they fall off the roof and land on the vessels, they will be potter because there was no negligence here. The chikavtze b'kfitza lo nafle alayu, that if the hunt or the goat were to have jumped off the roof, they would not have landed on the vessels; they would have overshot it. V'afilu tchilaso b'pshia leka, and therefore it's not even starting off as posheya because there was no negligence here at all. Omar Rav Zvid Mishmei Dirava says Zvid Mishmei Dirava Paimim. There could be times that even if you say tchilaso b'pshia v'sofa ba'ones potter, there could be times she'afilu naflu nami chayiv, that even if the hunt or the goat fell, you would still be chayiv. Mishkachas la, we find it bakosel ra'ua. For example, if there is a wall on the roof, a wall surrounding the roof, but it was flimsy. So and then the animal falls. So my nihu, what are we saying? The iboile la asuke daita dinafil arache. So what? So we're saying that we have to be concerned that one of the parts of the fence might fall down. Wait, let me just make sure I'm translating that right. Yeah, we have to be concerned that one of the bricks might fall down. But says the Gemara, sof lo nafal arche. But at the end of the day, that's not what happened. It's not the brick that fell down. V'nafal inu, it's the goat or the hunt that fell down. Who? And therefore, it's a situation of tchilasu b'pshia, that it was irresponsible at the beginning because maybe one of the bricks would have fallen. But nonetheless, it ended up not being the bricks that fell; it was the goat or the hunt that fell. So tzricha b'kosel tsar. No, where the problem is talking about where the wall was very thin, and therefore he has to assume that the goat is going to jump up on this wall, and the place for it to stand is pretty thin, and then the goat or the hunt won't be able to, it will lose its balance and fall. So in that case, you have to assume that it might fall, and you would be chayiv in that case. Okay. So if you have a hunt or a goat that jumps upwards and breaks something when it jumps up, but if it jumps down from someplace and lands on something, chayavin. Adam v'tarnagol, a person and a chicken, shadalgu, that if they jump, bein milamala, bein milamata, whether if they're jumping down, whether they're jumping up, chayav, and the people and the chickens are going to be chayav. But we learned in a brayso, that when it comes to a hunt and a goat, shedalgu, that jumped, whether from the top to the bottom, whether from the bottom to the top, peturin, they're peturin. But we just said that they would be chayavin if they're jumping from the top down. So Tirgma Papa, the apik mepach. Well, says of Papa, where we say that they would be chayiv would be if they kind of like did it with like in a mashuna way, they like switched it around. Kalba bizkira, the dog, instead of like climbing, it jumped. Vigadi besricha, and the goat, instead of jumping, it like climbed. So yachim my pturim. Well, then why are they pturim? They should be at least chayiv chatzi nezek. So pturim b'nezek shalim b'chayiv b'chatzi nezek. That b'diuk. They're pturim from nezek shalim, but chayiv chatzi nezek. Friends, that was daf chaf aleph of Masechta BavaKama. We wrapped up the discussion of zanen v'zel chaser. It seems that interesting. When it comes to zanen v'zel chaser, it sounds like he doesn't necessarily need to pay. It's kind of interesting. Then we got to the like tzidei rishus harabim kind of stuff where you'd be chayev. So different machlokuses, Rav and Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Meir. Then we got to a new Mishnah that talked about hunts and goats jumping off roofs. Friends, peace out.